Good morning, all of you. Today we'll discuss about the important topic of cryptography and network security. The topic is email security. And as we all know, the email is one of the mostly used and regarded network services. Uh, in current situation, if you want to communicate to somebody, the more authenticated way, the more used way is email. That is the email services. Now the question is, we can send the message to the email. We can send some of the important topic, important messages, important information through the email. But currently, the transmission of the messages from the sender to receiver is not always secure. The question is, how we can secure this email transmission from sender to receiver. So currently the message contents that cannot be secure, it can be taken by the some of the third party. He can encrypt the message, he can receive the messages, and he can change the messages or read the messages, or he or she can tamper the messages. So due to this procedure, due to those mechanism, we can call that email is not secure. The question is, how can we provide the security to email? We can take the help of cryptographic approaches. We can take the help of cryptographic algorithms to make our email to be more secure. That means if you want to send a message through email to person X, that message may be inspected by either in the transit is nothing but during the transmission, or it can be suitably privileged user and destination systems. So main objective is, what are the objective of email security? As you know, the basic objective of any cryptographic algorithms are confidentiality, authentication, message integrity, and non-repudiation of the origin. So we'll discuss one by one. As you know, what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is nothing but how your message is confident, or how you can keep your message confidential during the transmission of sender to receivers. The content of the message should not be disclosed during the transmission of the message from sender to receiver. So it gives the protection from the disclosures. The third party which is present in between the network, it cannot access your message. It cannot read your message, so that the message is kept confidence, or it can satisfy the confidentiality between the sender to receiver. Second one, authentication. The property of authentication indicates that whether the message is authenticated or not, and who is the sender of the message. That sender is authenticated person or not, or it is coming from a third party. So the property is called as authentication. Third property is message integrity. If you say that is integrity, the entire message can be worked as a one single unit. That means if you say that the message satisfies the integrity property, it should be protected against the modification. During the transmission from the sender to receiver, the message should not be changed. The content of the message should not be changed. The message should not be modified during the transmission from sender to receiver. And last property is nothing but non-repudiation of the origin. It indicates that once you send the messages, when the sender will send the messages, later on he cannot deny that he has sent the messages. So it gives the protection from denial of the sender. Once the sender has already been sent, later stage he cannot deny that he has sent the messages. Let us consider a small example. If you send a message through the email to receivers, so if it contains some of the messages which can be hampered to, or which cannot be which can be hampered to the receivers, or there will be some error, or there will be some problem of the message. Hence, the you can letter you cannot deny that you have sent the messages. Okay. The question is how we can achieve this email security. So one important features, one kind of mechanism is used to achieve the email security is called as PGP, pretty good privacy. Most of the emails are if you say that in email, it's not nothing only the Gmail, it may be Gmail, it may be Yahoo Mail, it may be Outlook, any type of mail service providers. So how can you give the security to those? If you simply check any Gmail transmission, it is in the form of that TLS encryptions. It follow the TLS encryption mechanism. So similarly, here you can provide that email security, and the basic features or the basic mechanism here is pretty good privacy. So normally it is used to secure the email. So for security of the email, we have to use this PGP. It is developed by Phil Zimmermann, and it is select the best cryptographic algorithm which can be used. And as you know, the previously the best cryptographic algorithm, you can say that it is a RSA algorithm, it is maybe a DS algorithm, it may be a AES algorithm, it may be digital signature algorithm, it may be any elliptical curve algorithms, digital signature algorithm. So those algorithms can be chosen for the PGP. Now the question is it a single component or it can be encoded with a program? So the PGP, it can be integrated into a single program. In the entire PGP can be act as a single program. It can be implemented. It is platform independent. It can be implemented on any operating system. It can be implemented in Windows. It may implemented in Unix, Linux, Macintosh, any other operating system. It can be used. So at the first initial phase of the development, it is free, but nowadays it is a commercial version is used. You can purchase, or there will be some of the free version is also available to. Now we discuss about what are the different operations that can be performed in PGP. Simple thing is that it provides those 4 services: confidentiality, authentication, non-repudiation, and integrity. So based on those operations, PGP can be categorized into number of several operations. We'll discuss one by one. That is the first one is called as authentication. So as you know, authentication, the exact meaning of authentication is nothing but it authenticate the sender. If it authenticate the sender, all the operations that can be performed by at which side? At sender sides. Okay. Next, if all the operations that are performed with the sender side, it is associated with the key of the sender side. As you know, there will be basically 2 types of a key that can be associated in the encryption process. Either it is a public key or it is a private key. So the basic difference between public key and private key is nothing but if it is a public, it can be known to both sender and receiver. If it is a private, it can be only known to the sender or it can only known to the receiver. So here we have to use that concept of that public key, private key, symmetric crypto system and asymmetric crypto systems. So it is based on that key concept. So there will be different number of stages, different number of phases in which can perform the authentication of the PGP. Let us discuss step by step. So as we discuss, the authentication can be performed at sender end. So the step number 1, the sender has to create a message. Suppose my message equal to hello. Suppose my message is equal to hello. It can be created by the sender. So step number 1 is completed, the creation of the message at sender side. Then it will go for a hash algorithms. And PGP uses normally SHA-1 algorithm. We have already discussed what are the different type of hash algorithm. Either it is a MD family or it is a SHA family. That is secure hash algorithm or it is a message digest. There will be several versions of secure hash algorithm. Shortly you can call that as a SHA. But the PGP uses SHA-1 version to generate 160-bit hash of messages. And this SHA-1 function is basically used to generate the 160-bit hash of messages. Now step number 2 is completed. We have applied the SHA-1 algorithm. We have generated 160-bit of hash of messages. So after generating this hash message, then we have to go further using some cryptographic algorithm. Normally the RSA algorithm is used for signing the messages. So the signed hash with RSA using sender's private key and it is attached to the messages. So a signature is to be generated by using this hash function based on the RSA algorithm with the help of sender's private key, and it can be added to the message. Now our message will consist of the original message M along with a signed hash value based on RSA algorithm with the help of sender's private key. Once the step is completed, now the component will consist of the message as well as the signature with a hash value. Then the receiver uses, then this combination is to be sent to the receiver. Now receiver will receive the message and the receiver uses the same algorithm since it is a semantic key crypto algorithm. So the receiver again uses the RSA algorithm with the sender public key to decrypt the message and recover the hashcode. Now the question is, the public key is important over here. Since it is a public key, hence it is known to both sender as well as receiver. Hence by this public key, the receiver decode the message, the receiver will decrypt the message and also decrypt the hash code. Once at this step, the step number 4 is completed. The receiver receives a message, decoding it and also decoded the hash code. Then we will go for the verifying whether it is coming from the authenticated sender or it is coming from some other person. So to match this one, the receiver verify the received message using hash of it and compare with the decrypted hash value. If both values are same, then the receiver will receive the message and that message is sent from the authenticated senders and it can accept the message, otherwise he will go for the rejecting the messages. So this is all about the authentication process of PGP operation. First step, sender has to create a message. Second step, by using a hash function SHA-1, he will generate a 160 bit of hash of messages. Third, with the help of RSA algorithm and sender's private key, is generate a hash value which is called as the sign hash and it is to be added to the message and it is sent to the receiver. So the receiver will receive the message and uses the same algorithm RSA with the public key of the sender to decode the message as well as to find out the hash code. And both it will be matched or both will be compared. If it is same, then it is accepted by the receiver, otherwise it will be rejected by the receivers. So step number 1 is completed. That is, step number 1 is completed, which is called as the authentication process. So the next operation is confidentiality. The meaning of the confidential is nothing but the message which is to be transformed from the sender to the receiver, it should be confidence. It should be confidential between only the sender and receiver. The third person which is present in between, it cannot find out the content of the message. So for this confidentiality property, we have to follow as step number 1. Simple thing is that the sender generate a message and 128 bit of random number as session key for it. So two things will be there. A message is to be taken and 128 bit number of random numbers it has to be generated, which can act as a session key. So after the first step, the sender has two things, original message and a session key, which is of 128 bit, and it can be treated as a random numbers. Once both are generated, then the sender will go for a encryption process. Now, as you know, the session key consists of 128 bit number. Simple thing is that it is a block cipher type of mechanism. It is not a stream cipher. It is a block cipher. Either will go for 32 bit, 64 bit, 128 bit, 256 bit, 512 number of bits like this. Then it is a type of block ciphering mechanism. Okay. So if it is a block cipher, we have to take the help of a block ciphering modes over there, and based on the block ciphering mechanism. And we know the different type of block ciphering mechanism is nothing but AES, DS, or IDEA, or a cast in different type of a block ciphering mode. But here the sender has to encrypt the message by using either cast 128 algorithm, or it is a IDEA encryption algorithm, CDS algorithm. All are in the form of a block ciphering algorithms in CBC mode, cipher block chaining mode, with a session key. Now session key is already generated. By using that session key, without taking the help of a CBC mode, it has to by using that CBC mode, it has to go for the encrypting the message. It can take the help of DS. It can take the help of cast algorithm. It can take the help of IDEA with the session key, which is generated in the step number 1. Now message is there, session keys which is consist of 128 bit, encrypted message is completed. Then it has to be go for a RSA algorithms. So step number 3, the session key is also encrypted by using RSA with the help of receiver's public key, and it should be attached to the message. Now your message will consist of two things. One is encrypted message, encrypted session key by taking the help of RSA with the help of receiver public key. Now sender is to send those messages along with the encrypted session key to the receiver. So receiver receive that messages, and receiver will uses the same algorithm, RSA algorithm, with its own private key to decrypt the message and also recover the session key. So the receiver will decrypt the messages by using its own private key and get the message along with the session key. Now the receiver has two things. Then he will go for the decrypting the session key, which is used for the decryption of the messages. And these are the basic principle of confidentiality. Sender has to generate a message. Sender has to generate a random number as is the session key. It is a 128 bit. If it is a 128 bit, it's coming under the block cipher. Different type of block ciphers are there. Different type of block ciphering modes of operations are there. For encryption, we have to take the help of those block ciphering encryption algorithm like AES, DES, cast 125, IDEA. Here you can use the IDEA or 3DS or cast 128 in cipher block chaining mode with the session key. Once it is encrypted, then the session key is also go for the encryption by using RSA with the receiver public key, and it can be attached to the messages. So that again is go for the receiver end. Receiver will uses the RSA with its private key to decrypt and recover the session key. Now we have to find the we have already find the recover the session key, which is already encrypted, and we have already decrypted the message. The session key again go for the decrypted, and it is used to find out the message. So authentication is completed, confidentiality completed. Now is the combination of both. third type of operation is nothing but confidentiality plus authentications. So that means both the operation will go for the merging. It is check the authentication. Again, it is check the content of the message should be confidence. So it can use both the services at the same message. How we can perform to achieve this both confidentiality and authentication? First, we can use. We have to create a signature and we have to attach to the message. Okay, so creation of the message and attach to the message. See, creation of the signature and attach that signature to the message. Signature, what is exactly signature? Signature is nothing but a piece of information, secret code, which is to be added to the message for the security purposes. Now, once signature is created and it is attached to the message, then we go for the encryption of both message and signature. Okay. First step is creation of the signature attached to the message, encryption of both message and signature. Third, we'll go for the encryption, and the encryption you can perform by using either RSA or EL-GAML encryptions by using the session key. So if we follow those principles, we can combine both authentication and confidentiality into a single pair. And the fourth type of operation that are associated with the PGP is called as compression. So there will be different type of compression algorithms are there, like your zip, tar. So zip compression algorithm can be used in PGP. And one important feature of PGP is that by default the PGP compresses the message after signing but before encryptions. So once you use the PGP, it can automatically compress the message after you have to perform the signature operation, but before the encryption. Once the encryption is there, you cannot again perform the compression. All the value which is compressed before the encryptions. So can store the uncompressed message and signature for the later verification. Okay. So, and always remember, this compression is non-deterministic in nature. There is no such specific rule how the compression will be there, which data is to be compressed. It is always a non-deterministic structure. So this is all about the four type of operations: confidentiality, authentication, combination of confidential authentication, and compression of any PGP operation. Okay. Now, the fifth one is email compatibility. So this is another operation that is associated with the PGP. It is called as email compatibility. When we using the PGP, we'll have to send the binary data to the receivers, and those data is nothing but the encrypted message. Those data is nothing but the encrypted message. So PGP will have a binary data which is to be sent, and it is a encrypted message. However, email is only designed for the text. The question is, if email is only designed for the text, how we can send some of the messages, some of the images, some of the audio files, video files into the email? Hence, for this one, the PGP encode the raw binary data into printable ASCII character. That means it first convert the raw binary data which is associated with those different number of files into ASCII characters, then it can be sent. So to convert those type of mechanism to use these ASCII values, PGP uses a algorithm which is called as Radix 64 algorithms. Okay, so the basic mechanism of Radix 64 is nothing but it map a 3 byte into a 4 printable characters. So it can take 3 number of bytes, we convert that into 4 number of printable characters, and also append a CRC checksum. So based on these two concepts, the Radix 64 algorithm is used, and it can be used in PGP for email compatibility. It map a 3 byte into 4 printable characters and also with a CRC values. Okay. So now the question is, if my message is too large, what to do? If your message is too large, then PGP will segment the message into different number of parts according to its compatibility. So according to its compatibility, it can divide that message into number of fragments or number of segments. Okay. Now from this diagram, we can easily clear what is the overall operations of the PGP. Let let we have a file and let the file name equal to X. Let the file name equal to X. So these two diagrams is one is for the sender as well as for the receivers. So let my file equal to X, and for the first instance we have to check whether the signature is required or not. So the signature is required or not. So to give the secure, to give your email to more secure, we have to generate the signature, and it is normally in the form of that confidentiality part of the operations. So if signature is required, we have to generate the signature. If the signature is not required, then no need to generate the signature, you can directly bypass it. So we'll go for one by one. Suppose we want some signature, we have to put the authentication of the senders. So generate the signature and add the signature with the original message file X. Now we have the original message file equal to X. Now we have generated the signature, and that signature should be added or it should be concatenated with the original message. Now you can check. So the signature is here and should be concatenated with the original message X. Now my updated message is nothing but the combination of original message X and its corresponding signature. Okay, so signature generation is completed and it is appended with the original message. Then it has to send to the for the next process, and next process is nothing but complex. Either you go for the signature or you go for the or there is no requirement of the signature, hence you can go for the compression function over here. Now different type of compression function is used. We can use the Phil Zimmermann encryption, as you say. So it is denoted as that Z of X. So we have the message, either it is a plain message or is the combination of a signature and the plain message. It has to go for the compression. So X value is nothing but Z of X. Z is nothing the compressed value of the original message X. Okay. So after the completion of the compress operation of X, then we have to go for the checking whether the confidentiality is required or not. Whether the confidentiality is required or not. So for confidentiality, there will be two type of options. Either you will go for the checking the confidentiality, or you may not go for the checking of the confidentiality. Okay. Suppose confidentiality is required. That means the message should be confidence between the sender and receiver. We have to go for the encryptions, and encryption by using the public key. So now this is the exact mechanism of encryption. Let X is my original plain text. We'll go for the E of PU of B by using a session key. Let the session key equal to K5. It should be go for the encryption of K5 with the original message X. And this E is nothing but it indicates the encryption by using the public key with the session key K5 and on the original message X. The result is to be stored in X. Now this X will consist of the encrypted message with a confidentiality. It go for the encryption, along with it go for the confidentiality. Okay. So if confidentiality is not required, we'll go for the convert that X by using Radix 64 as we have discussed in the previous slide. By the taking the help of Radix 64, the X will be generated, and this X is to be transmitted from sender to receivers. So this is all about the working mechanism from sender side, and the same message is to be transmitted to the receivers. So receiver will receive the message which is consist of that R64 of X. Then you will go for the decryption. Now the entire diagram is go for that from sender side. Let it will be A, the diagram of senders. Similarly, so from this message, how can you get the original message? Now we have this converted radius 64. Now the convert from radius 64 is nothing but R64 will go for the transpose or any type of decryption of this X to generate the message, original message X. So first is encrypted over here. You have to take the help of a decryption to decrypt the message. Now we'll go for the reverse way. Here you can check it will be confidential, and the second term should be confidentiality check. So if the confidentiality is required, then confidentiality equal to S, we'll go for the decryption. And since we are using encryption in confidentiality, if it is not required, we'll directly go for the decompress. Since in the previous step we have used the compress functions. Suppose confidentiality is required. Suppose confidentiality is required, we can decrypt the key by using X. Here we will encrypt. Now we can go for the decrypt. So for decrypting the message, the message is consist of two components. One is the original message, another one is the signature or the session key which is used over there. So for the decryption, two different components which go for the decryption. We'll go for the decrypting K5, this K5 which is used over here, and the original message X. So to decrypt this K5, you have to take the help of a D. D is nothing but here decryption of that private key along with the encryption using the public key of a K5. Okay. So after the completion, we'll get K5. Similarly, go for the decryption of the K5 along with the encryption of the K5 and original message X to decrypt the message X. Now this message is a decrypted message, and it is already checked the confidentiality property. Now after the completion of this step, we'll go for the decompress. If confidentiality is not required, the checking of the confidence is not required, you can directly go for the decompression. Now here we compress by using Z of X. You will go for the same decompress Z to the body of X for the decompression property. Okay. So after the completion of a decompression, again the procedure is signature is used or not. If signature is used, we will find the signature. If signature is not used, we can directly find the original file X. If the signature is required, then strip the signature from X and verify the signature. So if signature checking is required, you can find out the signature from the original message S and verify the signature. If it is associated in the sender side, if it is not associated, then directly you can get the message. So this is overall idea of how we can use the PGP operations at sender side as well as. Okay. So next we'll go for what are the session key that are associated with the PGP. So PGP need a session key for each messages. In the previous I have discussed about that session key is use K5. So each and every session it has to generate a session key, and there will be different number of size according to the size of the plain text. So the size may be 56 bit, size may be 128 bit, size may be 168 bit. So if it is a DS, nothing but 56 bit key size. If it is a cast or IDM algorithm is used for the encryption, it is 128 bit. If it is a triple DS, it is nothing but 168 number of bits. So different key size are associated with the session key. The question is how can generate? It can be generated by using ANSI X 12.17 mode. At this mode, you can use to generate the session key. Okay. So it is just the random input taken from the previous case. and from the keystroke timing of the users. So for those session key, it can be taken randomly from the input which is taken from the previous, and it is from the keystroke timing of the users. Now, is the PGP is public or it uses the private key? This is a big question over there. Is it uses a public key? Is it uses a private key over there? Since many public or private key may be in use, we have to identify which is actually used for the encrypt session in a message. So it may uses public key, it may uses private key, but at the current scenario during the encryption process, we have to find out which session key is to be used. Okay, so the user has to identify whether it is a public key or whether it is a session key. It could send full public key with every messages, but this is inefficient. So entire public key can be sent with every messages, but it does not give better result. So that is an inefficient mechanism. The question is how to overcome this problem. So to overcome this problem, it can rather use a key identifier based on the session key. So key identifier play an important role to find out the session key, and it is at least the least significant 64-bit of the key. So to identify this identifier based on the key, it must have to 64-bit of the key, and it should be unique. Each and every time the value should be different and it should be unique. So two things is important over here. It is a 64-bit and each value should be unique. Third, it also uses the identifier in the signature. So it identifies based on the key in the message, and it identifies the identifier, key identifier in the signatures. The overall idea of this one, it may be a public, it may be private. It's based on the encrypted session of the key. Enter public key, full public key can be associated with the message, but it's not efficient, for which you have to find out a key identifier, and it at least significance with the 64-bit, and each and every time there should be a unique key which is to be identified. Now this diagram is nothing but the entire PGP message format. So it will be divided into several parts. First we'll go for one by one. As you know, let us discuss this part. This part is the message part. This part is called as the message part, and the message part, as we know, it consists of the data which is in the message, the timestamp of the message, and what is the name of the file. Those part is called as the header, and those part is called as the payload part. Payload is nothing but the original data. Header will consist of the file name, the timestamp of that. So the message will consist of three components: file name, what is the timestamp of the file, and what is the data. Merging of these two can call that as a message. The second part is signature. See, and as we know, the signature is used for the authentication check, encryption process, and confidentiality. So the signature will consist of four components. What is the message digest? Message digest is used for the encryption process. Message digest is used for the compression property. So as we know, there will be two type of compression mechanism. Either it is a MD or it is a SHA, or any algorithm that can be used, whether it is a MD or whether it is a SHA. Whether it is a MD or whether it is a SHA. Second, from those messages, take the leading 2 octet of the message digest. You have to take the leading 2 octet of the message digest. Then by using these two, we have to identify which one is the sender's public key. It is denoted by PU of A. A is nothing but, we have to segregate that into two parts. One is A, another one is B. A is for the sender, B is for the receiver. PU is nothing but the public key. If you say that it's a public key, it can be known to both sender as well as receivers. And this key ID of the sender, and which key? The key is nothing but the public key, and also the timestamp value of the signature. So the signature will consist of 4 components: the timestamp, key ID of the sender, public key, and leading to octet of the message address, also the message address. Now 2 part is completed, either is a message or is a signature. Then we have to create the session key. So session key is consist of 2 components. One is key itself and receivers or received and public key. So it consists of 2 things. One is a session key, let the key equal to K5. Any number of key you can use K5, and also the key ID of the receivers. The key ID of the receivers over here we can use. Good. So these are the mechanisms over here. The entire algorithm can be used by a R64 algorithm, RAD64 algorithms. Okay. So up to this one, 2 mechanisms you can use. This chip is nothing but used for the compression, and E of K5 and Y you can use for the encryption of the session key and the encrypted message. So how can encrypt the session key? Now this one is the encryption of the session key, and this one is the encryption of the signature. So 2 encryption will be there: encryption of the session key and encryption of the signature, and it has to send the. Now this is all about the operation which is to be performed in PGP message digest format. So the PGP format is there. So it consists of, remember that it consists of 3 components: message, signature, session key. So if it's a message, it consists of 3 components: data, timestamp, and what is the file name. Data is nothing but a payload, the original content of the message. Then we'll move for the signature. It is associated with the message digest, leading to octet of the message digest, then key ID, the public key ID, then timestamp. All these component is coming under signature. Once the signature is completed, we have to go for the generating the session key, and it consists of 2 components: session key and key ID of the receiver public. So this is all about the PGP message formats. Okay, now we have to discuss the how we can generate the PGP messages. So how we can generate the PGP messages? First, we have to go for a passphrase. Let the passphrase is equal to S, or let us start from this one. Let my original message is equal to M, and it has to pass to this passphrase S. Okay. Now we can get a message digest. We'll go for the encapsulations by using this private key, and the private key ring is nothing but the ID A means the sender. It will go for the encrypted of the private key, then H will go for the to pass into the DC, will go for the concatenations, and will go for the encryptions. Now this combination is nothing but this message as well as the signature. This part will consist of the signature, this part will consist of the signature, and this part will go for the message and go for the concatenation, and each the encryption will go for the both combination of signature and a message. After the encryption, it is converted that into the encrypted signature plus message. Okay. So after the completion of this sender side, we'll move for the receiver side, and the ID of B is nothing but public key ring. So it will go for the encrypted message. ID is generated by using the public key PU of B, concatenated, and output is generated. So entire procedure we can call that as a PGP message generation. This is the working principle how we can generate a PGP message. Now once the PGP is generated, it has to transmit it to the receiver, and receiver, how can the PGP message used for the receivers. So this is the just opposite of the PGP message generations. It can be used the receiver ID key, encryption key, and encrypted message. It receives those things. It receives the encrypted message and signature. It receives the encrypted message and signature. It has its own ID. It has its own encrypted session key. Then he will go for the private key ring. Based on this private key ring with the passphrase S, he will go for the checking whether he can get a original message or not. He can get a original message over here, sender's ID and encrypted digits. Along with the public key ring, we will compare. If both are same, the receiver will receive, otherwise he will reject the messages. So this is all about the exact working principle of a PGP. Here we are discuss about what is PGP, how can you provide the security to email, what are the different aspects of a PGP, what are the requirement of a PGP, what are the different operations like confidentiality, authentications, combination of confidentiality, authentications, compressions, and compatibility. Then we discuss about what is the structure of a PGP message component, and also discuss about how to generate the PGP message and what is the reception of the PGP message. Okay, so this is all about the email security. Thank you.